Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
WMAL. 6:07 on O'Connor and Company this Thursday, the 19th day of February. By the way, I'd be remiss in not congratulating the midshipmen of the United States Naval Academy for clinching the Patriot League regular season title. Only one loss in the in tournament play, or not in tournament play, in division play, conference play, I should say, with the Patriot League. Now they still have a couple of games to go in the regular season and then the playoffs, but it looks like they might be going to the big March Madness tournament. Army, not so much. Just saying. Just saying. Coming up later in this program, we've got Chris Papst joining us at 7:05. He's a journalist out of Baltimore. We're going to talk about a story that he's been uncovering, and we're going to talk about that story right now, in fact, with Baltimore Public Schools. Also at 7:35, James Rosen of Newsmax, and 8:05, KT McFarland. Larry O'Connor here with Alex Swoyer. I didn't mean to drag you into my Navy triumphalism.
Just never ask me about sports. I have no clue. Just only if we're going to talk about transgender athletes in sports. Then I might be able to jump in with
You haven't been watching the Olympics even?
Not really, no. I mean, people ask me, like, what's your favorite sport with the Olympics? And I just kind of don't even... I guess ice skating is always fun, right?
There you go. Just the one with ice. The one on ice always works out. Hockey's pretty good. Curling, Alex Swoyer, of course, is Washington Times editor-at-large. She's got her own podcast called Court Watch, as well as book, Lawless Lawfare, Tipping the Scales of Justice to Get Trump and Destroy MAGA. That's all. That's Alex, and she's with us all morning long. All right, let's talk about this story. Let me first show you how Fox 45 Baltimore reporter Chris Papst reported the latest development here. He has been watching the money spent in Baltimore public schools, the failure that continues in Baltimore public schools. Where is that money going? Well, not into the classroom. Here, listen, cut one.
Surge in funding, Baltimore County Public Schools graduation rate has fallen to a 14-year low.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papst explains, one school board member believes graduation rates are down because BCPS has the wrong priorities.
Project Baltimore, over the past few weeks, has been reporting on high school graduation rates in our state. We've exposed how, despite record funding in Maryland, graduation rates have barely improved. In Baltimore City since 2017, taxpayers have given the district a 38% funding increase, but graduation rates are up just 1%. And now we go to Baltimore County, which is seeing similar results. What do you feel is the current state of Baltimore County Public Schools?
Uneasy.
Maggie Dominowski, 4 years ago, ran for Baltimore County Board of Education because she says the district was failing in its core mission.
We're not preparing these students to be productive adults, and we have to get better at it.
Now, 4 years later, as Dominowski seeks re-election, she believes she has identified the main problem.
Yeah. So what is that main problem? Because they've spent upwards to $2 billion, Alex, to try to solve this. But, of course, the people who are spending the money, well, they have a certain agenda, and it doesn't involve educating children. Here, take a listen a little bit more, and then we'll discuss it.
The majority of the adults on the board in the school system make decisions that are in the best interest of adults.
Which Dominowski says is hurting student outcomes. And recently released 2025 high school graduation rates appear to illustrate that.
We have been educating students for how many years now? How are we getting worse at it?
These are the graduation rates for Baltimore County Public Schools going back to 2011. That year, the graduation rate was 83.1%. From there, it began to increase to a high of 89.2% in 2018. But then it began to fall, all the way to 84.3% in 2025, which is now the lowest rate in 14 years. And in that time, the budget for the school system has greatly increased. In 2025, BCPS's general fund budget stood at nearly $2 billion.
All right. Chris Pabst, as I said, will bring that very expressive delivery to our program coming up at 7:05 to discuss the details of this. But, Alex, this seems like a perfect example of, the educator class aligned with the school boards, demanding more money, but never actually measuring the results, or for that matter, determining whether the money that they're spending is going to end up in the classroom helping those students. It ends up helping the education bureaucracy. More adults are being hired, more people are getting jobs.
Throwing more money at a problem and not having any sort of result. It's disappointing. I was just kind of, when we were listening to this, I was looking through to see nationally what the high school graduation rate is. It's like almost 87%, okay? And then you go to Baltimore and you look at Baltimore City Public Schools, I think it rose to 71.
Right.
I mean...
And and as bad as that is, it's actually worse, because if you test a lot of those students who are getting graduated out of the system and put out on the streets, they're still not proficient in math. The fact is, you can graduate from Baltimore high schools and not have a basic math skill beyond 8th grade.
It's unbelievable. Not just math, but I think also reading is also obviously a problem. My mom was a school teacher for almost 50 years, and she's talked about, especially with this new generation and the technology, not being able to, one, have the social skills to communicate, and two, be able to read and write well because they're used to using the text lingo, right? So, I mean, it's all around unfortunate, and it's not surprising to see like you mentioned, a bureaucracy want more and more money. Money will fix the problem, and then the numbers don't bear that. Since
2017, Baltimore City Schools have received $500 million. That's a 38% increase in funding. Graduation rates, they ticked up 1%. I will. That's since 2017. I will guarantee you that 1% increase in graduation rate, if you actually look at the proficiency of those students, probably hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, I just pulled up an article here, and it talks about the graduation is at a 14-year low for the Baltimore County public schools.
So what is the priority right now for Baltimore County schools as they see this happening, in Baltimore City schools as well, as they see this happening, as they see the money that they're spending, as they see the failure rates? Where are they focusing? Well, they're motivating the students in their school systems to leave the classroom and go and march on the sidewalk to protest ICE. We're going to give you those details coming up in just a second, and more on Chris Pabst's really great work. He's written a book about it, Failure Factory, How Baltimore City Public Schools Deprive Taxpayers and Students of a Future. He'll be joining us at 7:05, but we'll have a little bit more on his reporting coming up in a moment. First, though, at 6:15. By the way, Alex Swoyer, I know a lot of people instinctively might say, especially if you're in Northern Virginia, it's like, why should we care about Baltimore? It's like, well, it's actually very close. It is in our backyard right here. We are affected by what happens up there. The people who come out of that system end up being our neighbors and being employees of our companies, or people that we have to deal with when we go into a store on the other side of the counter, number one. Number two, if you live in Maryland, your tax dollars are going to pay for this. I don't care if you're Montgomery County, Frederick County, Prince George's County, St. Mary's County, you're paying for this because it's coming out of your tax dollars. And number three, and frankly, most importantly, Northern Virginia, you look at the methods and the agenda and the focus that Baltimore City Schools, Baltimore County Schools has right now and what's going on there, you will see all the hallmarks. You'll see the breadcrumb trail leading right to your school superintendent, right to the policies that they are implementing in your local school system. This is your school system about 5 to 10 years from now.
It's one of those things that's like, hey, watch this because it's coming your way, right? It's coming to a school near you.
I have no doubt that there are parents in Fairfax County Public Schools right now who are saying, oh, you don't have to look at Baltimore for this kind of thing. I promise you. And let me give you a perfect example. How many times do you hear about all the great awards and how wonderful the school superintendents and our, Loudoun County School Superintendent, the Prince William County School Superintendent, they're nationally recognized. Yeah, get this. The superintendent of Baltimore County Public Schools, with the 14-year low graduation rate, just won the National Women in School Leadership Award. Naturally. She's been recognized as the top woman in school leadership across the country as she oversees all of this wasteful spending and the absolute failure of those schools. So you've got to see some familiarity here, Northern Virginia, Montgomery County, Prince George's County. This is happening in your school system, too. This machine has got to be broken.
It does. It's one of those things where you wonder, is that not about what you know, but who you know? How do you get these kinds of awards with those types of numbers?
Right.
It's very disappointing. It reminded me actually of, this is just like a little tangent, but I think it was either Connecticut or Rhode Island. There was a woman, she's being honored as at a Black History Month gathering, and she has like 100 plus charges related to ballot fraud. And it's like, how do you make so many mistakes, or I guess purposeful errors,
or break the law,
and end up getting an award? I guess you have to be a superintendent or a school board on.
You just have to be on the right side of a politically correct issue,
I think you're right.
much, or wokeism, and that is the point here. The focus in most of these public school systems, and you want to see if this sounds familiar. Fairfax, Loudoun, Montgomery County, the focus is on politics, not on education, because in this very same school system that we're talking about, where they have a 14-year low graduation rate, after an increase of 38%, meaning $500 million more spending, they are now celebrating their students for getting out of the classroom in the middle of the class day, going outside with signs protesting against ICE. Dundalk High School in Baltimore County Public Schools posted on their, social media pages how proud they were of their students for marching against ICE a couple of weeks ago. They have a 28.9% failure rate, right? Oh, excuse me. Only 28.9% test proficiently in English.
Can you imagine?
I got that upside down. I thought the 28% was the failure rate in English. No, that's their success rate, Alex. 28% are proficient in English.
Well, I wonder if the signs are going to be spelled accurately. Well, that's one thing. I don't know if they went to the Leering Center for the educational...
No justice, no peace with an S at the end instead of a CE.
That's one aspect. The other thing, as you're talking, it just my legal brain goes to the First Amendment. And can you imagine if a student at one of these schools were to show up in a T-shirt, if you will, or something supporting ICE, supporting the administration, how they would be treated? I mean, they would probably be they would face backlash by a teacher. They might even be told that they had to leave, like turn their T-shirt inside out or change to be able to come back to the classroom. And here you actually have the push the agenda of leaving the classroom and having to basically spout a political narrative. It's what it's called in the law is viewpoint discrimination, and it violates the First Amendment.
Absolutely, and it is the priority. It is their focus. It's what they spend most of their time on in the classroom, and certainly at these school board meetings. Take a listen to this. This is cut forward. This is from Baltimore. The students, by the way, are not only failing in math and English, they're failing in common sense, because as they're screaming against ICE, they're literally in the middle of the street, weaving in and out of cars on the road. Listen. That's a viral video from somebody inside a car being attacked.
How dangerous. And think about during school hours, like the liability issues.
They don't care about such things.
It's just...
That's not a priority.
It's wild. And, I'm sure you're going to get to this, Larry, but one of the things is if you go on X, I mean, this is happening everywhere.
That's
right. And, it makes you wonder who's involved in this organization that's tapping into these kids.
It does make you wonder. You know what? We'll see if our guest at 7:05, Chris Pabst, out of the Fox 45 in Baltimore channel, it is happening everywhere. And if you go on social media, you will see it in neighborhoods and cities all around this country. We are focused on Baltimore because, again, it's in our backyard. It does affect us directly. And because Chris Pabst out of Fox 45 Baltimore is actually one of the handful of journalists locally. No, you don't see this on Morning Joe. You don't see this on any of the national shows. He is focusing on this. He's one of the few that are. So we'll see if he has researched that as well as to whether there is organization and money behind the political agenda that is taking the kids away from actually learning anything or leering anything. It's 6:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37 on this Thursday morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on O'Connor and Company on WMAL. Coming up at 7:05, Chris Pabst will give us his firsthand reporting on the failure of Baltimore's schools and how that's a bit of a canary in a coal mine for the rest of us. 7:35 brings us James Rosen of Newsmax and his brand new book, the second volume of his series on Scalia. And at 8:05, Katie McFarland will join us, and she'll give us her opinion on what's going on with Iran and Russia and Ukraine. A lot going on in the foreign policy sector. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with Alex Swoyer joining us this morning. She from the Washington Times and also the host of the Court Watch podcast. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And you remember 4 years ago, right at the beginning of the Youngkin administration in Virginia, big announcement about the fact that Boeing, the aerospace and defense giant, was moving its headquarters to Arlington, Virginia. 4 years later, we have a new governor down in Richmond. Her name is Abigail Spanberger. And now we have a new announcement from Boeing. They're leaving.
They're flying out.
They're done. Yeah, they're going to take a plane. Absolutely. It should be easy for them to move.
Yeah, what a loss. I mean, maybe they're seeing all these taxes that she's looking to implement, and they're thinking, whoa, Virginia's the new California.
I'm sure that's a big part of it. Yeah, they're going back to Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, for their headquarters now. It will no longer be in Arlington. Just the first of many companies, major companies. Actually, there are other companies who have already fled Virginia just in the last few weeks, but this is certainly the biggest and the highest profile. I'm sure that they will blame Trump or something. I don't know.
No idea. No. I wonder how many jobs. I just looked. So it's almost 20,000 positions. Was that maybe 17,000 positions with their workforce that I guess would have to be cut by Boeing? It says that they've had to do layoffs in Virginia. I don't know what the relocation will be, but it makes you wonder like how many different positions and the restructuring they're going to have to do from Virginia as they moved back to Missouri.
Yeah, and don't blame Doge, by the way, because when people were, not retained within the federal government within these sectors, it was the private sector that was willing to hire them. That was always the case, in fact, as people, look, they've cut these defense jobs out of the Pentagon and they've cut all these other federal jobs and they're angry and that's why they're going to vote Democrat. Well, fine, but the jobs were available. They just were available in the private sector, but now they're not available in the private sector either because Boeing is leaving. But I don't know how this works with the whole affordability message that the Democrats ran on because things aren't affordable when lose your job and your company moves out of state.
That's true. And also, one of the things I think is just crazy is there's also the different counties that are within Virginia. I think Fairfax County is one of them that has, so we talked about the different taxes that Spanberger wants to implement. There's also the county taxes. And so I think in Fairfax, you're going to have like a new restaurant tax. And then on top
it's already in.
Well, and then on top of that, you have her with her delivery taxes. So say if you're a working parent and you want to order dinner, I mean, you're facing down two new levels of taxes. That's definitely not affordable for your everyday voter, right?
Yeah.
Working.
Yeah, I haven't seen much coming out of the Democrats for these first 2 months in office that has anything to do with affordability other than the affordability that has an un in front of it. Unaffordability. Meanwhile, it's not just about money and jobs and affordability that's going downhill in Virginia. This story, ICE has reported that they arrested a gentleman named Shayan Kahal, a criminal illegal alien from Iran. His criminal history includes charges of strong-arm rape, strong-arm sodomy of a woman, strong-arm sodomy of a boy, and strong-arm sodomy of a minor girl. He was at large in Norfolk, Virginia, and was arrested by ICE. Let me explain something to you. Abigail Spanberger just signed a bill that would bar local jurisdictions and local law enforcement from cooperating with ICE. In other words, the likes of Shayan Kahal, a serial rapist, criminal illegal immigrant, under Abigail Spanberger would be released back onto the street if they are currently in custody and serve their time, rather than being handed over to ICE authorities for deportation.
Yeah, I just don't.
That's Abigail Spanberger's Virginia.
I mean, she's bringing Minneapolis to Virginia, right? That's what's going to happen, because I just never understand why, when we're talking about all the violence we see on the streets, these protests, if these sanctuary type laws and jurisdictions would allow ICE to go into these jails, right? And we're talking about people, what you just mentioned, the Iranian individual, like a child molester, rapist.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who are already charged, convicted of a crime in jail, that now the locals are keeping ICE from coming in and doing a safe transfer of possession, right? They're wanting to put him back on the street.
Alex, this guy is the backbone of our nation. The diversity is our strength, Alex. How dare you?
It's unbelievable.
Have you not read the poem at the feet of the Statue of Liberty?
I know. It's really sad. And it's also, it's that kind of political ideology. And then you put that with the rhetoric. And there's no wonder you're seeing people attack ICE officers at 1,000% increase, 8,000%, I think, increase in death threats. When I was interviewing, I think it was either Todd Lyons or Tricia McLaughlin previously, they talked about, too, like even these, I mean, my heart breaks for anyone that wants to serve this administration and the ICE in terms of immigration, because they talked about even their kids are being targeted, like the idea of like what schools they go to. It's wild and it's unfortunate.
Well, you said it at the beginning. She's turning Virginia into Minnesota. She is bringing all of the policies that have made the chaos in Minnesota the norm. And that's because, wait for it, she's a moderate. Abigail Spanberger. She's a moderate.
Go ahead.
Hold that thought. Coming up in a moment, we've got the language now for that ballot referendum that would allow the outrageous political gerrymandering to take place. And the language that Democrats have gotten approved for your ballot coming up in April, Virginia, it will make your eyes bleed. You will be so angry. Just wait. I'll read it to you in a moment. It's 6:43. The redistricting maps have been released, and they're outrageous. I'm sure you've seen them. You've got districts that start in the Shenandoah Valley and end in Fairfax County. In fact, there are no fewer than 5 congressional districts now that all end in a stretch between Tyson's Corner and Alexandria. They split. You can drive from the Woodrow Wilson Bridge to Tyson's Corner and pass through 5 congressional districts, Alex Swoyer, and they all start in D.C., and then they all branch out to the rest of Virginia, also they can get that Fairfax County population and turn them all blue.
That's what I was thinking. It's almost like it goes blue to purple, and then,
Right, the ombre effect, yes, and then it goes very deep red. And all of those people who live in deep red Virginia are losing representation because of this. But even more outrageous than the maps, and we'll get to the architect of those maps in a moment. Listen to the language that will be on the April 21st referendum that everyone needs to vote no on. Listen to the language. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections, while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census. So these districts restore fairness. By the way, think about the Orwellian language here. Should we suspend the current rules so that we can restore fairness, which implies that the current rules are unfair, but then we'll go back to the old rules, which we've just told you are unfair, in 2030 after the census. Make it make sense, Alex.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what census they come up with in 2030, right? It makes you wonder about how what numbers we're going to get there and the demographics. But before break, you mentioned that moderate Abigail Spanberger. I think that the lesson here is that there is no room for a moderate in the Democrat Party anymore. When they say they're a moderate, they are not. One of the things about this, I guess, redistricting in Virginia is I think just the numbers speak for themselves, right? It's like 6 Democratic districts right now to 5 Republican. It's going to be 10-1.
Well, that's restoring fairness.
Well,
Alex.
how fair does that sound? Just when you say
no,
that,
yeah,
I don't even do math. I'm a journalist. I think I got by in college with one math class somehow, and you can just say those numbers to me, and I'm going to automatically say that doesn't sound too fair.
By the way, one district in particular, Virginia 6, has gotten a lot of ridicule because it literally looks like a lobster. It's a giant lobster whose tail ends in Fairfax County at the Potomac, but then stretches out in 2 different directions, like a lobster's claws, down into southwestern and south central Virginia. That district now has a candidate, a Democrat, Dan Helmer. This is the guy who loves to show pictures of himself in his Army uniform. West Point grad who has embraced Virginia 7, I apologize. He has embraced every radical left-wing agenda item that you can imagine, pushing through it, taking away your guns, pushing transgender issues, like every single one of them. He plows through right now as a state delegate down in Richmond. And Dan Helmer, the man who has now announced his candidacy for Virginia 7, the Lobster District, also happened to have been on the committee that drew the district lines. He literally drew the lines for himself to run in the district, Alex, because fairness.
When you say this, we're laughing because it's not surprising for those of us that have been tracking this and covering it. But it's really sad, and it actually, it's a recipe for a lawsuit. I think, one of those challengers needs to get involved. There's clearly a conflict there. I don't know, when we were talking earlier about the Supreme Court and their voting rights case, when you were talking about these stretched out districts, that's really, the justices were talking about that with what Louisiana did in terms of trying to manipulate how they're drawing their district lines for race purposes.
For race.
Exactly. And so it's going to be interesting if we see an opinion that discusses the length to which that these districts can be drawn and stretched out, because that could impact what Virginia's trying to do.
Listen up. It's outrageous. It is shameless. It is blatant, and it's bald-faced lying. And Republicans, frankly, started this. They started it in Texas. They got it. And again, I'm not pointing fingers of blame. I'm just saying Democrats are showing you how to do this, guys. If Republicans want to play this game and get into it, you play it to win. And you are blatant, and you are shameless, and you do whatever it takes to get that, because that's what Democrats do. We're seeing it right before our very eyes. But if you're not willing to fight hardball, don't get into the ring. Yeah, Texas started it, you're right, and then it was California, and then we've seen all these blue states now going for it. Virginia, Maryland, you have North Carolina, which is going to be an impact. Yeah, but then you have places like Utah and Indiana that are like, these red states, like, maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. We're not going to do it. No, we won't. No, we are going to be fair. We're going to be better than that. Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah,
fine.
And then you're going to lose. And then you're going to lose, right.
Stand on your principles. You'll be standing on the sidelines. This is politics, and if you're not willing to play it, get out of the game. It's 6:53.